Hi, I'm Kevin Millett, and today we're going to discuss the digital transformation of a local food delivery service company, similar to UberEats. In a 6-month contract, there were three things that I wanted to resolve. The first one being the reliance on third-party applications for all of their analytics. For those that know, SaaS offerings give great value for little dollar. But the reports are all canned, which means everybody's getting the same reports, which gives very little room for improvement or competitive value. So we wanted to get away from third-party analytics. The second thing, the lack of SLAs, or service level agreements. Now, as a scrappy startup, this was not as much as a problem. However, the goal was to scale the company. As we were going to scale, we were going to need guardrails in place to be able to measure performance. Although at that time, every founder was involved with the interaction. As that group scaled, that was no longer going to be the case. This was going to be more important to be able to control quality. The third thing was making sure that we didn't have any visibility gaps in who our customer was. Now, see if you get this. How many customers are in the average delivery? Some people say one, the consumer. Smarter people say there are two, the consumer and the restaurant. Both of those are clients of yours. But there's really a third hidden client, and that is the contracted labor or the delivery driver. So when you really look at where you have to focus your SLAs on is to make sure you're looking at, not only you're looking at the restaurant and the consumer, but you're also looking at your driver. If you make your business or your operations governed around making sure that these three clients are happy, you will have a successful business model. Case in point, this is kind of the review of a major food delivery company. And as you can see, the needs of the driver are not being met in this triangle. And at the time of my competitive analysis, this company's turnover rate was 300%, which meant they were turning over their fleet 3 full times in a year. As a business owner, that is a nightmare scenario for controlling quality. So what did we do about this? So let's look at our people, process, and technology. So this is a people issue. This is a process because we're trying to figure out how we can govern the business. And this is a technology issue. So as we're looking at this transformation, we're going to hit it from the people, the process, and the technology mindset. What was the result? Immediately, driver satisfaction was up. Driver sat up. And what this does is there are fewer callouts, there's less turnover, fewer complaints. These were also driven by the SLAs. A byproduct of psychology is that if you know you're being monitored, your performance will be good. If you know you're not being monitored, you may tend to slack. With every single interaction, we were forecasting into the future the delivery, and then when those forecasts were not met, it was up for review. Most of the time when you look at these things, there are traffic conditions that impact the delivery. But we would find instances of personal business being handled in the middle of a delivery which impact the quality, and we would be able to address those. Another thing was our analytics improvement. A lot of these systems, when they come out in the third-party reports, it's transactions. That is the main thing. So normally what they'll do is they'll export the spreadsheet, they'll build pivot tables out of it, but that's the extent of the analytics. But there were major concerns of mine that our retention may not be up to snuff, and the rapid growth of the company was hiding the fact that we were losing customers just as quickly or at a little slower rate. So eventually we'd burn through the population And we didn't have a successful business model once we went through the pop. So that was one issue. And we were able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that not only were we having a successful business model, but we were growing as well. We were also able to do segmentation. And by doing segmentation, we're able to see the Pareto rule in a full effect. And 80% of our revenue truly was driven by around 20% of our client base, which allows us to segment our response and our offerings. Higher value clients get higher value offerings. Maybe mid-market doesn't get them. The onboarding phase, new people, we need to build that rotation or that pattern of behavior to use us. So by having our own analytics, we were able to segment our customer base and then personalize the experience with us based on that. Now, with every small project or the resolution of these things, there's the bigger project or the greenfield project. In this case, we had our AI dispatcher assistant. And what this did was it allowed us to scale the dispatcher by providing them with all of the routes that were available and suggesting the next best routes. Ultimately, this was going to be the replacement of the dispatcher, but in its current form, it acted as a very high-level assistant that would point out how these routes should be distributed, and ultimately it was up to the dispatcher to choose those routes. In a perfect world, this would have worked autonomously. However, there are things that happen in reality that we had to code for. We hadn't reached that point. And these are things like people calling out in their schedule. So our forecast now is containing somebody that's no longer going to be on the floor. We have outages with the car. We have disagreements with clients. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons in reality that impact a delivery that the dispatcher here was not able to accommodate for. So although eventually this was to be an autonomous delivery system, in its beta form, it was a dispatcher assistant. And what this allowed us to do was see 45 minutes into the future and be able to gauge whether we were going to be able to meet SLAs or not. And so what we looked at was we looked at the intersection of the customer, we looked at the intersection of the driver, and then we looked at the intersection of the restaurant, and then we found rules that help satisfy all three with every interaction. So with the driver, the fairness of the dispatch system, it made sure that we were not playing favorites on the fleet, which was a concern. And in the cab industry, you'll hear this often, that the dispatcher prefers so-and-so, they get the better trips. With the AI dispatcher assistant, we could remove any doubt that that was being done in our organization. It was done algorithmically. Also, we could control when a restaurant, we could monitor, make sure that deliveries were made within a specific amount of time. And we could even call up and push things back if we realized we were going to run into some issues, maybe shut off the application and not take any more orders because we knew we'd meet and met our threshold based on staff. What was interesting about this is 3 months before Grubhub made their announcement that they were able to algorithmically compact orders into groups and send them out, we had figured out how to do that ourselves. We had what we call the golden configuration, and we would find groupings of orders that, when delivered together, still met our service level agreements. I've seen this in action with Uber, and if you've eaten from UberEats, you'll see that the driver is on an order with somebody else. However, what I have found with Uber is they will pack orders because they come from the same restaurant. But even if they're not going to meet SLAs because the destinations are on opposite sides of the city, they'll still group them together. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen cold food. Ultimately, after we addressed these visibility issues, we had some initial gains, and then we were working on the bigger projects. Overall, under that 6-month duration, this organization has grown. It's grown 230%. I'm Kevin Millett. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.